All right, guys, is it time for sellers on Bring a Trailer to get a reality check? If they're trying to sell a car on one of these auction sites, they'd better have reasonable reserves. We're going to analyze some listings. We're going to make some predictions. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube card game show. That's right. It's time for Bid Nerds. Hello, everybody. My name is John Polnick. I am coming to you live from the downtown container park in Las Vegas, Nevada, along with my partner Michael Deeb in San Francisco. What's up, Michael Deeb?
Dude, I am still hurting from car week. My lips are chapped. My voice is shut. I'm sure I put on 20 pounds, but I'm just happy to be here, JP. It feels like I haven't done a show with you in like 3 weeks. Holy God. What's up, nerd herd?
You have been missing. It's true. What the hell? Thanks again to Andy and Andy Stahl, and let's see here, of course, Wade Bennett from Tech Daily for sitting in with us and helping us get through. It's great the car week is over. Let's see if we can get things back to normal. It is time to talk about auctions and Bring a Trailer. Boy, things are kind of crazy in the market right now. It's a bummer. We need to get some more data from actual live auction, the car auctions that happened in Car Week. But I tell you what, during Car Week, looking at the results of most of the auctions, it was pretty rough out there because most of the people that were interested in buying cars were in Monterey. So now that we're kind of back in the swing of things, we've watched a few results at the beginning of this week, and it's going to be interesting to kind of contrast and compare and see if the results of these auctions this week are soft because everyone was out of town at Car Week, or if things are just a changin'. Let's get to the predictions that we made on the last episode. I know, Michael Deeb, you weren't actually here, but you've got him queued up. What was the first car we made a prediction on the last episode?
Don't worry about me, JP. I know how to play this game.
He's catching up.
So the first car we're going to circle back to is the 2008 Ferrari GTC4 Lusso with a V12 and just 10,000 miles on Bring a Trailer. Our car is offered by the very well-known seller WOB out of Thousand Oaks, California. And again, as I mentioned, it's just 10,000 miles. 6.3-liter V12. This was Ferrari's, sort of first admitted four-seater, like something that you could almost actually put grown-ups in the back of. Very comfortable car, very controversial shooting brake styling, super cool example in this sort of titanium gray, not an eye-catching typical yellow or red Ferrari. JP, these cars are soft. The market is soft, and this thing was listed during Car Week. You started the bidding at about $199,000. Wade Bennett from Tech Daily, our favorite, somebody who I'm looking forward to seeing over the course of Vegas Auto Fest, kept my seat warm and was your assistant in studio. His bid was $205,000. JP, looking at this car and looking at when it was listed, I know that the earlier versions of this car that were just called the FF, similar car would be in that $160,000 to $180,000 range. This is essentially the same car, but it's a version 2.0 with a little more power, a little more tech. But I still think these cars are soft in the secondary market. JP, I would have been the underbidder at $195,000. That would have been my guess. John, leave it to the kid, the Tech Daily kid, Wade Bennett, who owns a front-engine V12 Ferrari, to come the closest. Our car hammered at $206,000, where it failed to sell on 16 bids. Basically, Wade missed a Yahtzee by $1,000. He was right on the money. John, forgive me, I wasn't able to really chime in and participate with you and Wade when you did the show. When you guys gave your bids at $199 and $205, did you discuss whether or not you thought that if you were close, whether that would be a selling price, or did you guys talk about a softening of the market and a softening of these uber luxury non-lineup around the block Ferraris? Did you talk about these as potential failures to sell at your numbers? Because if so, then Wade's basically clairvoyant.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I thought that this car at 190, what is it? What I bid 199.
199.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I don't know if it's going to break 200. I know that's what everyone's asking for him. Kelly Smith, a good friend of the show, he currently owns one, and he hopped in on the Nerd Herd in the chat there live and said, hey, every one of these needs 50 grand work. Ask me how I know. I feel bad for him, right? So, I gave 199 being bearish, and that kind of surprised Wade. He was like, yeah, I was going to come in at that number, but I think I'll give it a little bit more if you're that sad on it. Honestly, I was like, I just don't see how this car sells during car week. And it turns out we were right. I think this car is the example that we were talking about at the beginning of the show. It is time for a reality check. This car is not going to be worth more than $200,000 again for a while. Something significant in the market is going to happen in order to support a higher price for this car. It's just, I'm sorry, we're going into election season. We're going into winter now. Summer is ostensibly over. I mean, it's perfect weather here in Las Vegas, but everywhere else there's going to start thinking about rain and boarding up and battening the hatchets. These types of cars, I think are just going to go down and down and down and down. Wade brought up a point that, a few years ago, these things were struggling to get 100. So they realized a lot of appreciation. But if we're talking about a reset happening, it's got a long way to go down before it gets totally equilibrium price from where they were before, even if you adjust up for inflation a little bit. I cannot be bullish on a Ferrari FF, even though I kind of like the car. I got to admit, but I like it as a value. If this was $100,000 car, I would be in the market for one until I hear from Kelly Smith who says it's going to need 50 grand.
Yeah. It's a hell of a driving car, JP. I mean, it feels like, a Formula One car and an M5 had a baby together. It's just, you and I have our own, similar issues with modern cars that lack soul and character. I'm not saying this car has a total personality, but it is certainly different than a lot of other things. And the driving experience is incredibly rewarding because, you've got this big, luxurious car, but it absolutely belies its weight with all that power and the sound that it makes. And it's so effortless, it's just the right amount of assist. It is a fun car to drive. It'd be a fun car to Turo. But like Kelly Smith is implying, you certainly don't want to be the one that's on title when it comes to time to pay the service bill. And cars like this are long out of warranty. So, and that's also why they're soft. Personally, JP, at 206, a failure to sell, I'm scratching my head and saying, why didn't you take the money? I just think that's all the money, and I think he should have accepted that number. To me, the reserve should have been at 2, and when it hit 206, he should have counted his money and just been like, well, I'm done with that stupid Ferrari and move forward. Beautiful car. They're awesome. If you were getting one brand new and you didn't have to pay for service or warranty or anything like that for 3 years, have at it. But in this day and age, a car like that's 6 years old, move on.
What do you guys think of the results of this 2018 Ferrari GTC4 Lusso at $206,000? Should the seller have taken the reality check and written and cashed the check, and taken the money and gotten the hell out of this? That seller is stuck with the car. That's what I think. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Shout out to the Nerd Herd. Thank you guys for hanging out with us live tonight, spending a Wednesday evening with us. A lot of the usuals are here. Sounds like there might be some new folks in the chat, and looks like the Nerd Herd is doing a great job welcoming the new folks to the chat. So if you are new to the show, thank you for hanging out. And what was the next car on the list? See if we can answer the question. Is it time for a reality check on BAT?
JP revisiting the 1997 Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe with a 6-speed manual that is offered out of Denver, Colorado on Bring a Trailer. Our car is painted the iconic 993 color of arena red and is showing just 73,000 miles. Now, this is a 6-speed manual coupe. It's got basically the Targa wheels, which are a multi-piece wheel. That wheel would not have been available even as an option on this car when it was being sold new. You've got the car lowered on VW K3 coilover suspension, and it's got the Pfister Stage 2 mufflers. and a Continental head unit. I mean, this car has some really cool trick pieces. The mileage is fair. The color is outstanding. Denver, Colorado at this time of year is not a problem to get the car out of. I dig this car, JP. The stance is just right. The wheels kind of give it a little bit different look. All black interior sells me almost every time. John, I like this car. You opened the bidding at $85,993, and Wade Bennett from Tech Daily was keeping my seat warm last week. He came in well underneath you, JP, at just $78,911. I wonder why he didn't like the car. John, you know I just sold a 95 with 58,000 miles for $87,000. So I would have liked this car just a little bit more than that. Despite the mileage, I think the additional pieces that are on there, the iconic color of Arena Red, the stance, and the bigger platform being on BAT, JP, I would have gone over at $93,000. I would have been the high man on this one. John, our car hammered at $88,500, where it's sold on 34 bids. I'm a bit surprised by that number. I would have thought this car had... I think if I was the seller or even the listing agent for this car, I would have expected 90 grand or more. No matter what we agreed to from a reserve standpoint, I'm surprised that you could acquire this much car and that many accessories for less than 90 grand. I feel like the buyer won here. What do you think?
I think this buyer was smart and, cashed the reality check. I think they saw the writing on the wall. I think they were like, yeah, you know what? Maybe 3-4 months ago, hell, maybe even 3 or 4 weeks ago, this car brings more than 90. But I think after Car Week, I think going into the election season, I know I sound like a parrot, Anthony Vieira from Our Smiths, sponsor of the show, good friend of the show, he basically was thinking the same thing I was thinking in the comments. He said, this is a canary in the coal mine. That was exactly what was going through my mind, and I use that a lot. This car is I'm not going to say it's a pedestrian car, but it is a commonly wanted car. This is kind of the car that you're looking for when you don't want to buy a super collector car. This isn't a wide body. This thing isn't an S. It's not a turbo. It doesn't have anything really special. It just has the perfect amount of miles that you could buy this car and drive it and enjoy it. It's got the right mods. It's got all the things that you want that a lot of people are looking for their Porsche, but the miles aren't so low that it's like too collectible to drive. This car really sits in a sweet spot, and there are a lot of them that come to market like this car. And I agree with you, Deeb, that not too long ago this was a $90,000 car, but I think from here on out, I think until next season, I think people are going to struggle to see above 90 for any run-of-the-mill 911, even a 993, as nice as this one. But let's face it, this car is not, this car is not a jewel. It's just really, really nice. And it is a car that I would love to own, that's for sure. And I'm sure you would too.
Absolutely. I got a soft spot for that color. I've got hats and sweatshirts all picked out already, as you can imagine, having owned a very similar shade 911 myself. I dig this car, JP. I think it's a great value here, and I do think it is an absolute representation of the reality check that is today's market. And for the foreseeable future, I don't think 90 would be on the menu for that car until next spring at the earliest, and that's only if things really go smoothly during the election. And based on what we've seen so far, that is not guaranteed.
Yeah,
so anyway,
well, let me bring something up, because the inflation word is a word that we use all the time. Go ahead and drink, guys. It's the drinking game for bid nerds. The feds are saying that inflation is going down, which is patently absurd. But they are, I was actually on Dave Matthews' show this morning. We recorded a bit for the What's Next Wall Street show. He wanted to talk a little bit about cars as an asset class, basically. And so, we were talking about how, let's face it, consumers and investors in America are very reactive to perception and emotion, not so much reality, right? When you hear on the box that inflation is going down, well, that's like saying, okay, 3 years ago, I weighed 200 pounds. Then the next year, I gained 10 pounds. Then the year after that, I gained 11 pounds. And then this last year, I only gained 5 pounds. Am I still gaining weight or am I losing weight? I'm getting fat. That's the answer. I'm still getting fatter. I'm just not increasing my fat at the same rate that I was the first 2 years. Inflation is not going down, guys. It's just not going up as fast as it was before. Maybe there's a whole other story about juking numbers, but the reality is people can feel that even though the box is telling you, oh, the economy's fine, nothing to see here, move on. Everyone's feeling it. They're going to buy a pound of hamburger and it's twice as much as it was 3 years ago. These things translate into that. That's what inflation is, right? So I think the car market going into the election season is going to be tougher, but I think there is the incumbent party, and again, we try to avoid politics here, but there is absolutely every indication that the incumbent ticket wants to bolster the economy going into the election. They do not want to see a big, huge disaster. So it's likely that the feds will cut interest rates. Will that create a short-term rip? The funny thing is, this morning they also announced that they might want to introduce a new policy of taxing unrealized gains, which I think would be absurd and that would absolutely crash the stock market. But it could be an interesting thing for odd, weird asset classes like cars, because if the feds don't classify classic cars as a traditional asset class and they tax gains on traditional asset classes like, say, the stock market or real estate, well, everyone's going to get out of those asset classes and try to find other places to put their money that aren't being, like, nobody is the IRS going to come in and say, oh, your 993 went up 30% this year. You owe us X percentage of that 30%, like they would with your stocks. Really? Or maybe you and I could get a job with the IRS. I don't know. But could you imagine? It's just crazy. So I think it's entirely possible that you could see a rip in the stock market. I think you could see a bunch of people trying to cash in, and then after the election saying, okay, what's actually going to happen? All right, time to get out and start buying other things. It's going to be a rocky ride, guys. I know I'm kind of rambling here, but buckle up, Buttercup. What's the next car on the list that we can see if we can figure out and decide, is it time for sellers to get a reality check? I think this next one is an indication that the seller really needs to get a reality check. What's up with this next car?
All right, JP, what we're talking about is looking in on the 2021 Rezvani Tank. Our car is on Cars and Bids, showing just 4,900 miles. And again, this car is already 3 years old, almost 4 years old. It utilizes a Hemi V8 6.4 liter, I think naturally aspirated V8. I'm not 100% sure because I don't know the car that well. But 500 horsepower. Yeah, that's got to be normally aspirated. What a beast. And look at that suspension travel, JP. This looks like a crawler if ever there was one. It also looks like something out of a science fiction movie. This is not something I would gravitate to. I would not walk across the street to take a closer look at it. I just don't care. But interesting all the same. JP, looking in on your bid, you opened the bidding pretty soft at $90,000. Wade Bennett from Tech Daily, who kept my seat warm last week. Thank you, Wade, for joining us in studio. He was much happier about this car. He went to $122,000. John, I probably would have bid something just over $100,000. Let's call it $106,000, thinking that this car would easily make $100,000. But after that, I think the bidders would have been scared to chase this thing up to a true retail value, especially in this market, especially during car week. So I would have got off, I think at 106, I think everybody would have got off this car. John, our car hammered at $120,000, where it failed to sell on 47 bids. But I have an update for you, JP. The car sold after. So Cars and Bids listing in the result that the car was a post-hammered deal. But as is tradition in the protocol, Cars and Bids does not list or publish the selling price. So it is a bit of a mystery, but it's safe to say it was over 120. JP, venture a guess. Do you know what people pay for these things brand new? It looks like it's a completely fabricated car.
Yeah, we talked about it in the last episode. The brand new one, these started about 170 grand, right?
Okay.
And you know, it's a Jeep. It's a Jeep Wrangler, people. It's just a Jeep Wrangler with a big demon engine in it. Big whoop. I mean, a Jeep Wrangler is worth $30,000. Throw on a $20,000 engine, and I don't know how much all this stupid plastic crap all over it. The interior pretty much just looks like a regular Jeep. It just doesn't make any sense. This is worse than like an RWB on a Porsche. This is just the dumbest thing I could think of. You know, and look, you're saying that it's sold after, and they're not publishing the price. We have seen when they've sold after that they do publish the price, which leads me to believe that someone bid on this car and then they didn't win. And then they were probably like, oh, thank God. But then, you know, somehow after the fact, Cars and Bids, a salesperson talked to somebody and they're like, all right, we'll sell it. We'll buy it. Fine. Maybe they lowered their number. Could you imagine getting the call and realizing that you didn't win this stupid thing and thinking how relieved you are? And then, you know, Doug DeMuro's calling you, hey, did you really still want to buy it maybe for a couple grand more? No. How about this? I'll give you $5,000 less. $10,000 less. Right? I mean,
yeah.
I think this seller, I mean, they have to have their head checked for not taking that money, and the fact that it sold afterwards. Okay, I guess
this might be a premiere, like a world first on Bid Nerds, where JP hates a car so much that when it failed to sell and then sold post hammer, he actually believes and is trying to sell to the herd that this car sold for less money, because I'm sure the guy who bid 120 had bidder's regret. That, JP, is one of the funniest takes you've ever come up with.
It happens all the time. I called you earlier this week about a great little Porsche 924 that was listed on BAT like last week or the week before or something. I mean, I think it was last week during Car Week. You know, it got bid up to 11 grand, and this is the nicest 924S we've ever seen. Ever. Yeah. I mean, this thing was mint. Clean. Perfect dashboard, rebuild it. I mean, you know, and it failed, or it got to 11,000. The poor guy ran it no reserve, right? So it got to 11 grand and it sold. And I remember checking the auction later going, oh crap, I would have bought it for a little bit more than that. Not much, but a little bit. So lo and behold, I check some other listings and I find the same car listed on another place. And I reached out to the guy. I'm like, hey, yeah, you know what? I'll take it for 11. He's like, nah, man, not doing it. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Why did it sell in the first? What happened? He's like, well, the guy ghosted me, and I was pretty happy that he ghosted me because I didn't really want to sell it that cheap. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, so it happens. Sometimes buyers just, what the hell was I thinking? I just bid $11,000 on a 924. Am I out of my mind? I mean, so
John, that 924 showed up in the classifieds for 15 grand too, by the way.
It did, you know, for 4 grand more, and it's still there. And the guy has been texting me lowering his price each day since I called him the first time. So I don't know, maybe I will be able to get it for 11 grand. And when he calls me and says, I'll give you 11 grand, I don't know why I'd be like, yeah, I don't know what's
JP.
I just bought a new watch from Hoursmiths. I don't know.
Based on your diatribe, you should get this car for like $8,000.
$8,000, right? But at least this car isn't as embarrassing and stupid looking as this dumbass Rivian or whatever the hell you call this thing. I mean, that is the Rezvani, whatever. This is the Rivian, Rezvani, honestly, two of the dumbest cars of all time. All right, what do you guys think of the results of this Rezvani selling for that much money? What was it, 120 or something after that? Do you think they actually got more money after the fact on Cars and Bids? I sure don't think so. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And what other car did we make a prediction on the last episode, Michael Lee? What do we got?
Commercial break, buddy.
Oh, it is commercial break. Thank God. We will be right back.
Now a word from our sponsor.
Hey guys, I got to tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you got to call our friend Steve at Godden. This guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas.
You could win this Lotus Emira from Vegas Auto Gallery at Vegas Auto Fest. Hi, I'm Rami from The Rami Show on YouTube, and I've teamed up with Vegas Auto Gallery to give anyone who goes to Vegas Auto Fest a chance to win this car. Get your tickets at vegasautofest.com and come to Red Rock Country Club Saturday, September 21st to win.
Spectator tickets are just $20 and kids under 16 are free. So get your tickets now for a chance to win this new Lotus Emira.
From Vegas Auto Gallery. Vegas Auto Fest. The drivers are coming.
Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. I am so excited about AutoFest this year. Our friends at Our Smiths will be there. They are making a custom watch, a custom fine Swiss watch. It's going to be an automatic thing. I haven't seen what it's going to look like, but I'm sure Anthony's going to come up with something super dope. I'm super jealous of whoever winds up getting this watch because we're going to be giving it away.
Can Bid Nerds employees be in that raffle? Like, how do we get that? How do we get it?
I don't think we're eligible, my man. I don't think we're eligible.
Come on,
yeah.
man. I'm carrying the torch. What are you talking about? I want one.
Yeah, so I can't wait to see that watch. You could also win F1 tickets at Vegas Auto Fest this year. You could win that Lotus Emira at Vegas Auto Fest this year.
Damn.
This show is off the hook. We've got so many great new sponsors and vendors and activations this year. It is just going to be a carnival out there. If you were at Car Week, look, we were just at Works, and Works is lame. Go to Vegas Auto Fest is what you want in a car show. Go ahead, Deep. Sorry, you were up in there.
I just love that there's so much stuff you could win, and it's in Vegas. I was wondering if you were going to get Clint Eastwood to do a clip for you where you go, "Are you feeling lucky, punk?" as you come into, as you walk, as one of your commercials for this year's AutoFest, man. That's really good stuff. I'm as if you needed a more compelling reason to come and hang out with all of the gang from Vegas, and quite a few members of the herd are going to be there. So not only do you get to meet the Bid Nerds themselves, plus Rami, plus Wade Bennett, plus Nicole Johnson, but it sounds like several of the key OG members of the Nerd Herd are going to be there. We'll have gang from New Orleans. We'll have gang from California. We'll have gang from Boise from the Spud Syndicate. So if you just want to meet some of your friends from the comments, you should come out to AutoFest. It's definitely going to be the Bid Nerds reunion tour. So come on out. It's going to be a good time.
Looking forward to seeing you guys there. Okay, let's get into it. Is it time for a reality check for sellers on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, PCAR Market, Haggerty, and more? We just went over the results of some listings that closed earlier this week, and we've got some new listings that we want to go ahead and analyze and make some new predictions on and see if we can answer that question. The first car on the list is one on a platform that we just love. What's the first car on the list?
JP, this one really bends your emotions. What we're talking about right out of the gate is this super cool 1970 Porsche 911E coupe that has been modified to be a Safari. Now, if you're a big fan of the show and you're really into your time on BAT, whether you're on the commode or you're spacing out Galaxy Brain at work and you just jump over to BAT to see what's listing, you may recognize this car that is currently on PCAR Market because this car just sold no reserve in November of 2023 on BAT. JP, now when you look at this car, is this a car we covered? Because I looked for it in our sheets and I couldn't find it, but I knew I recognized the car from BAT. So any deja vu as I review this car?
I don't recall covering this car, but
okay, so I don't think we covered it.
Bruising the
I'm guessing that I probably earmarked it as a like what I do is during the week I just start liking, like I save cars, and then right before we do the show we pick like 2 or 3 out of the dozen or 20 that I've got sort of saved. So I have a sneaky suspicion I saved this car, but really neat car. It's got a 2.2 liter flat 6 with fuel injection, 5-speed manual, super cool wheels, a beautiful livery and the basket on top and a spare wheel and mud flats. JP, I don't even know. Those are ATS style wheels, 15-inch ATS style wheels. The black and red with the patina and the number plates and the gold wheels, I dig everything about this. I personally do not desire to own a Safari car, but if I did, I would want it to look a lot like the car we're looking at here. Now, our car sold last year, no reserve, for just $73,500. And JP, that sounds to me like a really good deal, because say you weren't into Safaris and you just changed the suspension on this car for like $5,000. Well, it's 78 grand. You'd have a gorgeous, street 1970 911E, and I'd say you'd be in at a really decent value. So I kind of feel like this guy stole the car last year, and now he's bringing it back to market less than a year later on the inferior platform, but with fresh assets. And JP, I got to tell you, these photographs are actually pretty good. They do a very good job of selling the romance, as I will steal your terminology, your vernacular from you. They really do sell the romance. When I look at these photos and look at where the car was taken to shoot, that's where I'd want to be in this car having fun of my own. And that's what would help separate my money from my mouth. So, JP, do we think that that's enough to carry it over the inferior platform? Do we think it'll do as well this time around on PCAR market in a down economy, in an election year, and after the Super Bowl of the sports car world, which is Monterey Car Week? So, JP, I send it over to you. The fresh assets are so cool, I actually thought that it might have been our buddies Matt Crandall from 911R, but that is not who the seller is. The seller here is referred to as Young Motor Cars, and I don't know who they are. So there you go, JP. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely love the aesthetics of this car, but let's face it, the Safari thing is a bit played, and I like Safaris. I'll be the first to admit I love this car. I love the way this thing is set up. It's odd to me that someone chose to buy this car just last November or December or whatever it was, just less than a year ago, with clearly they had the intention of flipping it. I mean, that's a very short amount of time to have the car, and now they're here already trying to get rid of it. If that were their intention, I'm with you, Deeb. I think you remove the Safari suspension and you make this a normal street version of the car. You bring it down. As much as I like the Safari stuff, all that Safari stuff is very easy to sell, right? If you've got all that suspension, all that gear, you just throw it on Renless or Pelican, you're going to sell it like that. Like, I would love to bolt all that stuff up onto my 912, which I think is a more suitable car for a Safari build. Whereas this particular car, could you imagine how hot it would look if it had street tires with those wheels and it was down low, and you get rid of the tire on the rack and you put, some skis or some, old bags or whatever. This, get rid of those rocker panels. And this car is just a super hot rod. This is what everybody wants, and it probably brings $20,000 more because of it. The Safari thing, as much as some of us like the Safari car, most of us are not willing to spend the extra money for it. So you're limiting your market, you're limiting the audience, you're limiting the likelihood of having 2, 3, 4 guys at the end of this auction fighting against one another because they just have to have it. You're automatically cutting a lot of people out of the potential for this there's a lot of people that love the way Safari looks, but like you, Deep, don't want one, right? So what do we think this car is going to bring?
All right, JP. So again, our car sold on November 27th, which tells me that was probably over Thanksgiving weekend, and it was running no reserve. So it's entirely possible that this guy just accidentally bought the car because it was so low and it was no reserve. And that's a weekend when everybody's distracted with Christmas shopping and holidays and travel and all this other stuff. Terrible weekend for such a niche car to close on. And I think this guy bought it really well. The question is, he's waited till now to bring it back to market. And this is also a tough time because of the election.
We lost my partner, Michael Deeb. We'll get him back shortly, I'm sure. Oh, wait, is he back? Hold on. Stand by, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, I love this car. It's funny, Ross. How you doing, Ross, from the other side of the planet? Sounds like Ross has got a... Oh, look, we got Michael Deeb coming back. Stand by, everybody. Gotta love a live show. We lost you there for a second, and he is back. Michael Deeb, can you hear us?
Yep. So anyways, I just think that this guy has got a really tough road to hell to get money out of this car. JP, he's on the inferior platform. It doesn't look like he's made any changes to the vehicle. He does have good assets, but I don't know that that's enough to overcome the watermark, which is his purchase price. So JP, I think this car is going to hammer at around 70, where I think it'll fail to sell because I believe this guy's got eyes on $100,000 or more for his beautiful vehicle. I just don't think he's going to get it. So I'm going to say 70 at hammer with a fail to sell, because that would not guarantee that he recoups his money. And I think it winds up in the deal tank for something that's probably a bit eye-watering. I'm guessing 95 or more, so I'll say $100,000 in the deal tank. But 70 FTS, JP, he bought it for 73.5. Where are you?
Yeah, I don't even think it's going to get there. Look, the PCAR market has just turned into the PCAR flea market. If you've gone and spent any time in the chum bucket, it used to be that the chum bucket was maybe 2-3 pages long, but it is like 10 pages long now. It is just full of crap that they can't sell, whether it be cars or the stupid magazines or whatever reprinted BS that they're trying to sling over there. They're having a really hard time. We have seen a couple of really, really, really nice, clean, perfect cars. Like I think they had a GT3 RS, like a 997 version of that, which is a really sought after car. They bought some pretty good money for it, but it didn't happen until after the sale. But some of the numbers in the chum bucket right now are just like, they'll just make the snot come out of your nose. Be careful not to drink milk if you go look at the deal tank. It is so dumb, it'll just make you laugh your ass off. This particular car has no chance there because it is a very limited market. So I'm going to say 65, 911, say at FTSs, and probably winds up in the deal take probably closer to the 90 range, like you were saying. Question for you, Deeb. If this thing were road height and had the road stance, what does it bring on BAT?
It's a $95,000 to $100,000 car. Easy, JP.
Yeah.
And again, it would certainly be worth more if it was like original paint color and matching numbers and a COA and all that happy horse stuff. But as a livery car, JP, I can't quite tell if that, that line of patina over the fenders and the tops of the doors and the tops of the rear quarter panels is a faux finish, or if it's just a faded paint and they embraced it with like an extra layer of clear coat and then really buffed it out or something. It's hard to tell. But the gold lights and the mud flaps can stay, and the rally lights and the wheels and the number plate and the decals, that's still to me $100,000 car. I would say it's one of those rare opportunities where a completely unoriginal car could rival the value of an all original car, because I think they did. It's a very polished build as far as embracing kind of the romance, the era of an old, it looks like an old 911 that you found in your neighbor's barn, something that, your granduncle used to rally.
Yeah, everybody wants that look. I mean, look at the PCAR flea market here. This is the chum bucket. Wheels and Camaro signs and a Datsun sign and just look at all this stuff, man. What are they like? An E46 M3 for $35,000. Are you out of your mind? I mean, some of this stuff. FTS. All these cars are cars that failed to sell. This 2002 Porsche Cabriolet 996 C4 that only got bid up to, I want to say, like $17,000. They want $34,000 for it. I was kind of watching that one. I mean, look, you just pages after pages. There is, look at this red one here, guys. This one is just, this will make you laugh your ass off. This is a 79 SC wide body cabrio. That means it was a Targa. That means someone chopped the loop off, guys. This car got up to $35,000, which is $10,000 more than it should have. And now the idiot wants $55,000. Talk about needing a reality check. PCAR market just never ceases to amaze. Is PCAR market going to make it, Deeb? I mean, look.
It looks to me like they're not adding any new, like they're not doing more lots this year than they did last year of automobiles, and they will not survive or even keep the lights on selling automobilia. They really should be two different pages. They blend them together so it always looks like they have 3 pages of content, which is technically what that is, but it's a complete misnomer, because at this point, JP, more than half their lots, like 52 to 55% of their lots on any given day, are not automobiles. So they're diluting their own inventory by taking on more and more seats and signs and books and models, and that stuff is not going to keep the lights on. That's not going to pay the salaries and pay the rent and pay the web and this, that, and the other. It's just not going to work. So if they don't figure out a way to start adding more automobiles than what the, like, if they only ever have 25 cars listed, if they can't get up to 30 cars or 40 cars or 50 cars, if they're not growing, as things get more expensive, they're dying. So JP, no, they are not going to make it. Yeah, they need somebody like the Bidnerds to buy it and fix it for them.
If it's $1.89, it's overpriced. Look at this. They've got a Ferrari model boat for $1,200. It got bid up to $600. Oh, yeah, they're almost there. They're going to make it 4% of $600. You guys are really bringing it. All right, guys, PCAR market sucks. What do you think of what do you think this little Porsche Safari is going to bring? Do you think it'll actually get there? Could it make it with those big Safari knobby tires? Will it make it to the top of the hill and get $100,000? Or is it going to stall out at the bottom of the hill? DB, you want to hop in there with one more thing? What do you got?
I forgot to say, it closes in 2 days. It's only at $25,000, and that $25,000 is by way of a single bid. So that's not looking good right now.
That's not looking good. All right.
Yeah.
Do sellers need a reality check on BAT and the other auction platforms? We've got more cars to look at. What's the next one on the list? See if we can answer the question.
All right, JP, I selected for us this really, I hate to say this term on our show, but it's so adorable. Like, look at that 1978 Subaru BRAT GL 4-speed. This car still smells like Snohomish. On BAT, JP, our car is listed out of Croton on the Hudson in New York, and is a BAT alumnus, having been acquired by the seller back in September of 2023. Back then, the car was showing, they didn't even list the mileage, so it's probably a TMU car, but it looks to be basically original. The car sold for $12,500 in the fall of last year. It has come back to market looking much to be in the same condition. It's worth noting, JP, that I think the BRAT was made for, like, believe it or not, like 6 or 7 years. 1978 is the first year that the BRAT was available. And I don't know that I recall, like, to me, the shape is just a little different on these early cars. And so it's funny, like, I picture the BRAT a certain way that's a little more, straked and like slicked back by the wind. This car looks to be more truckish and sits more upright, but looks really great all the same with the jump seats and the roll bar and the red and white livery that's on this car. Super cool little thing, 4-speed manual. JP, 1500 cc's, and it makes like 67 horsepower. These early ones are an absolute putt. If ever there was a car that needed a motor swap to make it more fun and continue driving today, I would say it's one of these. But JP, I couldn't help myself. This thing just looked really cool. You don't see them very often. They never did bring collector money. If I was to wildly speculate that someday some obscure Japanese car would suddenly be worth a ton of dough, the Subaru BRAT might be on my short list. They're just so unique compared to everything else that was made in Japan that was sold here stateside. It doesn't have any domestic or Japanese or Asian market competition. And for that, I think it should be celebrated. Here we go, JP. A first-year Subaru BRAT GL. Do you recognize that shape, or does it still look sort of foreign to you? Like, it almost looks like an old Datsun in this iteration of the Subaru. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does have the front end does kind of look like a Datsun pickup truck of the same era. No, this is just the earlier version. The 80s version was a little bit more boxy. If there was an automotive equivalent of a puppy, if you look at this thing and don't smile, you're just a bad person. I mean, really. This is just all kinds of fun. I love hearing people. Everyone that sees one of these has a story. It's like, I remember driving in the back of that car. That's when things were different, where the kids got to go down. Nobody cared where your kids went. They rode in the backs of pickup trucks. Everything was fine. It's like, it was fine for those of us who survived. The kid that was thrown out of it because he didn't use a seatbelt. I don't remember them ever having seatbelts. I kind of feel like someone added those, quite frankly. frankly. I don't think they came stock with seatbelts in the back. Certainly in the front, but not in the back. Golly, these things are so fun. How awful is it that they got a canopy for it? What is the point of that? The whole point of being in the back of this thing is without the canopy. You got it, like if you put that canopy on, it's just going to be sucking exhaust fumes into the back, because if that thing doesn't seal well, and I'm saying this as a kid who spent many hours in the back of a Datsun pickup truck with a canopy, with the fumes being sucked back in. That's probably why I am the way I am, kids. You're always asking the question, why is JP so grumpy? Well, it's because I lost a few brain cells when I was 16 or 14 or 12. See, I can't do math. I love this car. Love it. I don't think it's going to bring a lot of money. It is an interesting time to bring something like this to market. I think this thing would have been a kitschy, fun, hipster car like this. Definitely would have brought more money a year or two ago when people were just looking for places to put their money. But nowadays, it's like you're seeing a lot of cheap stuff go back to being cheap because people don't have the money to buy cars, ironically, like they did maybe a couple years ago or even a year ago. And this is the kind of car that really, who's buying this? What are you going to do with this thing? I mean, is this going to be your daily driver? No, this is going to be a fun, silly thing to maybe take to car shows, rip around, maybe if you have a ranch somewhere or something like that. But how many of those people are there really? I think the market's going to be limited. But what do you think it's going to bring?
So JP, it bums me out. This guy paid $12,500 for the car late last year on a no reserve auction, and he's had it for a year. And I just think there was an opportunity for him to like get rid of that front push bar, take those safety belts off the back seats, put the stock air cleaner back on the carburetor, put the stock steering wheel back on. He probably might have to hunt down that front bumper, but I just feel like if he would have reassembled this car to be like as bone stock as possible, then I think he would have had an opportunity to make a couple of bucks here, maybe even against the softening of the market that has plagued his year of custodial ownership of the car. He paid $12,500, JP. I thought for a minute he might get to 13, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And he's running at reserve. He's not even listed at no reserve. I think no reserve would have helped keep these underbidders engaged all the way through to the hammer, and he's not willing to do that. And for that reason, JP, I think he's going to struggle. I think this car fails at $10,500. And I imagine it doesn't meet reserve because I'm sure he's trying to get every last penny out of it. The fact that he's running it with a reserve on a $12,000 purchase price tells me he needs the money. I just think you want to talk about a reality for sellers. This guy's about to be splashed with not cold water, but like Antarctic frozen water. This dude is in for a world of hurt here in the next day or two. JP, our car closes in 2 days. It's listed at, it's bid up to right now $7,978. The increments are in single dollar increments. That's just on 6 bids. Again, my bid to you, JP, is $10,500, and I'll throw in a FTS to go with it. Where are you at?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad bid. I don't think returning it to stock would make any difference at all. Maybe someone would spend an extra $500 or $1,000 on it. I just don't. The parts are there, so going through the trouble and the work, it looks cool with the period correct, goofy add-ons, and it comes with the stock stuff. So I just don't think that matters. It's just not worth the effort. This is a car that's not going to bring a ton of money, like you said. But there are Subaru fans out there. Our friends, what is it? I did a film on a Subaru 360, this little Subi van. Check it out on Cars Unknown, the Fascination site. It was a video I made years and years ago.
Super cute.
Yeah, it's
not much bigger than this car either.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's a whole van that's smaller than this thing. And I didn't know how crazy Subaru people were until I met those guys, and I'm spacing on her name. Just lovely lady that owns the car. But it's funny. She sent me a link literally today, saying that someone had ripped off some of my footage to make a video. I guess Subaru just announced a new Subaru 360, and some YouTuber made a video and they ripped off my footage, and it's in a montage. So I got to reach out to them and go, hey, what the hell? At least give us a shout out. Will this thing break Will it break $10,000 or not? Yeah, I'm going to give it 11 grand. I think it's got a little play there. I think 11 grand isn't too much money for someone that wants something kind of kitschy and fun. It's already at 8 grand. It's got a couple of days to go. Oftentimes with cars on BAT, we see a doubling in the last day. I don't think that has any chance in hell in happening.
No way.
Will $11,000 buy it is the big question. Does the seller need a reality check? You know, when Bring a Trailer accepted this vehicle and the seller was having a conversation with the representative from BAT and they asked for a reserve, that was probably a month ago, and things were different in a month ago. That's the problem with BAT, is that there's such a big lag time between the time that someone presents their car to be listed and the time it actually goes live, that a lot of data, you know, a lot of information just isn't there to accurately predict what prices are going to be like a month later. And I think this car is going to suffer from that. I think that the seller probably does have a $13,000 or $14,000 reserve. So I am with you. I don't think it sells. Let us know what you think this little Subaru BRAT. Is this car so BRAT? Isn't that what the kids say? BRAT? Isn't that a word now? Is this car going to bring the big money or is that bed going to be empty? Let us know what you think in the comments, and let's move on to another listing. Sellers need to get a reality check. What do we got next?
All right, JP, one more. Let's do a 1994 Lotus Esprit S4. This particular car on Bring a Trailer is listed out of Jacksonville, Florida, and showing just 445 miles on the odometer. The S4, I think, still uses a 2.2 liter turbocharged inline 4. That's going to bring horsepower, JP, up to, I had it here just a second ago. I think it's like 265 or something. It's not quite 300 and 300. It's a little under at both, but enough to make this car exciting. And this Lotus, back in period, was a little long in the tooth in the 80s. The basic design, the Gigaro design from the Lotus, was born in the 1970s. So by now it was pretty, but it was definitely very old and very aged. And that kind of horsepower did not make this car competitive with things of the era. By 1994, you know, Porsche turbos and normally aspirated mid-engine Ferraris were making in excess of 300 and in some cases close to 400 horsepower. So this Lotus was long in the tooth back then. It was not a commercial success in the United States. That being said, this particular car that was sold new in Sacramento, California, has basically been hermetically sealed and is showing as in basically as new condition. The question is, are these cars collectible? And I'll just go ahead. Spoiler alert, they're not. You know, if this were any other car from 1994 with 444 miles on it, you could just blindly say that car is worth 3 times sticker price. Well, sticker price here is in the $70,000 range, JP. I'm going to give you $71,094 MSRP. And spoiler alert, my bid will not be that high. So, JP, I just hand this back over to you. Cool car, sort of. Neither one of us would want to own this thing, but we'd both probably knock each other over on our way to be the first to drive it, because it would just be a hell of a lot of fun to drive somebody's Lotus Esprit around the block at the next Cars Un Cafe. But man, time has not been good to these cars at all. I thought when Magnus Walker bought one and brought it to Radwood in LA, there might become a run on Lotus Esprits. That did not happen. And so these things are still almost worthless. This one might bring some decent money. It might be close to sticker price. But you know, you could pick up a nice one of these for 40 grand. This will go for a little more than that, but this car won't even bring MSRP, I predict. So JP, I hand it back to you. The Esprit S4, this is before they jumped in with the V8 twin turbo and got themselves up to 350 horsepower. This is almost 100 horsepower less than that. It's a pretty car, but it's awkward to drive. It'd be a pain in the ass to maintain and service. And as such, they don't bring any money. What do you think, John? It's black, but I don't think you want it.
It is. I've always had a soft spot for these, at least the way they look. I think they are gorgeous. I think the design is quite timeless. I mean, it really is just kind of that iconic early supercar shape. I think it's always been a lot of bang for the buck. But with that little engine, that's just silly in such a heavy, big car. I mean, you're absolutely right. In that era, you had like 300 Zs with more horsepower, or Toyota MR2 turbos would whoop the ass out of this car. Now, when I first saw this, I thought it was going to be a V8, and I've never driven one of the V8 ones, and I've always wanted to, because I did drive one. I drove I want to say a 90 or 90. No, it couldn't have been. Yeah, it must have been a 90 because I was a sales puke. Told you guys, I got a lot of exhaust fumes when I was a kid in the back of that Datsun. In 1990, you do the math. If you can remember anything from 1990, go screw yourself. So I was a sales puke at a dealership. It was just a crappy little car lot on Lake City Way in not Snohomish, but Seattle, if you guys know where that is. They had a Lotus franchise, and one day, somehow or another, I wound up at the Porsche franchise, and then someone's like, oh, hey, are you going to the North End? Can you drive this Lotus up there? I'm like, hell yeah, I can drive this Lotus up there. I'm like 19 years old. You're going to hand me one of these? Hell yeah. So I got in that car, and, if you've ever had to drive one of these, you cannot see out of them. It's like it's like a bunker. That rear window is like this tall. Trying to back one of these up, it's just impossible. Seeing out of this, you can see forward, and that's about it. The just blind spots are horrible. So I remember just white knuckling it to where I had to go, going, oh my God, what am I doing? I thought this was going to be great. Don't meet your heroes. The 4-cylinder was underwhelming. It was a fun car. It was neat, and I was glad to have the chance to do it. But for my money, I'm waiting for a V8 one. This car desperately needs to be lowered, and you need to get rid of those chrome wheels or powder coat them gold or something like that, and then this would just look so dope. But reliability of a 90s British car, that's got to rival the Italians, right?
In fact, it might make the Italians look like a solid bet. These cars are just plagued by maintenance issues and service issues. And that's when there was a dealer network across the country to service these things. And that doesn't exist anymore. Try rolling into your current, joke of a Lotus dealer today that's trying to sell Emiras and futures on electric vehicles that I'm not even sure they'll ever build. And roll in your 1990s S4 and tell them you need a fuel pump. I mean, give me a break, JP.
Yeah. What's it going to bring?
You'll be fabricating till the cows come home if you have a car like this. John, again, this car should be worth $80,000 on paper. That is not the reality today. Our car is currently sitting at $27,445, and it has 3 days to go until it closes. That's by way of 6 bids. John, I put $63,000, and the whole reason I think this car will make 60 grand is because of the miles. There might be some fool out there that thinks, well, I don't have to drive it. I'm just going to save it. I'll take the battery and drain the tank, and it'll just go up in value because of the mileage. And that guy might be right. But you're not paying $63,000 and thinking you're not going to have to spend 25 grand in service and maintenance to drive this thing. So 63 to you, JP, where I do think it will sell because there's a reality going on. I just think that this guy's getting off this car. He must know that 63 is all the money. Where are you at, JP? 63 to you.
I'll go 55. I'll park it underneath you just a little bit. I think it's going to FTS. I think this guy wants 75 grand. I think this guy submitted this car a month ago when hopes were a little higher, and I just don't think it's going to get there. So what do you guys, the Nerd Herd thinks you're right, $60,000. Oh, Phillips at 44,444.
Carbine's
sell.
at 85.
Wow.
Carbine, you could buy it. You could buy it and save 20 grand, buddy.
85, spend another 20 grand and get an Emira, and that's an awesome car that will get you wherever you're going to. How many Emiras did we see at Car Week? It was like, was there? Everybody has one. Was at Monterey.
Totally.
We must have. They were like Kias or Hyundais or something like that.
Yeah.
There were so many of them. Still want one. Okay, there it is. What do you guys think this Lotus Esprit will bring? Is it going to bring the big money like Pretty Woman, or is it just a dirty hooker on Hollywood Boulevard? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Yes, there was one of these. Wasn't there one? There was one. That's the car that they were driving.
That's exactly the car.
Yeah, exactly.
With a standard H.
Yeah, that's right. Standard H. It's like it's on rails. Stupid movie trivia. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Get your AutoFest tickets at VegasAutoFest.com now. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you haven't done it already. If you're new to the show, thanks for sticking around this long. Make sure you subscribe and come back Sunday night for another live show. Hope that you were hanging out in the chat. It's so awesome to see you, the Nerd Herd, having a good time over there. I tell you what, I say it all the time.
Yeah.
I'd rather be hanging out with them than you, Deep. Sorry, love you, but
JP,
they look like they're having more fun than us.
We hung out with Randy B at Works for Union. We met Michael. I hope I say his name right. Michael S in the chat is Michael Chinook. We found him flirting with Nicole Johnson, and we hung out with Nicole Johnson. We saw Yuri. We saw the professor. We hung out with the Godden gang and celebrated their
Who
victory.
won, by the way? They won.
Yeah. Congratulations to JP, who made that incredible video, which in no small part was a big piece of the pie in the victory, the all-out victory for the preservation class of the Classic Challenge for Porsche Cars North America. So big shout out, big congratulations to Steve Thiel, Paul Jarrett, and the team at Godden Porsche for absolutely killing it. But their ace in the hole for sure is our good friend. You know him as JP. That's the man right there. So well done to everybody involved. And thank you, everybody that we saw. And, if I didn't say your name, it's not that I forgot you. I just said I forgot.
See you Sunday night.
Get those words!